Hey everyone, how's it going? Elliot here, and welcome back to the Retro Future. This is an unexpected video. I ordered this thing back in April, and it never arrived. Obviously, we have had quite a lot of stuff going on, and I ordered this from Aliexpress, so maybe there was some sort of delay involved there. But so what is this? This is a refurbished Game Boy Advance from Aliexpress. So you can buy these refurbished, you know, they've been completely rehauled, or at least they apparently have. They come with a nice box and everything like that. As you can see, it was apparently 60 something pounds, but now it's been reduced to about 40. So without any further ado, let's take a look at this. Let's see if it's worth it, and let's take it apart and see just how good their refurbished job is. So I actually paid £31 for this. I'm not entirely sure why it's been increased by £7. I mean, £38 will go off of that price just because that's what it would cost you to get one right now. That's quite a lot of money. If you think about the price of a Game Boy, you can see them selling for around £20 or so. You're not getting any sort of mod in here. I mean, you are going to get a replacement shell, and time will tell how good the quality of that is going to be. But, you know, these things are being done in China, so they're just going to buy a bunch of Game Boys, walk next door to the factory making these shells, buy 20,000 of them for 10 yuan, and come back in and replace the shells and flog them for how much profit? I don't know, maybe £20 profit or something like that. So, without any further ado, let's take a look at it. I'm definitely not going to take into consideration the price of the box. It's a very cheap box, and it's aftermarket, so although it kind of is a nice thing if you're maybe giving it as a gift, as a collector, this box is worthless. So the aftermarket box, very cheap, thin cardboard. It is fairly nice, and the print is very good. It's just a very cheap, flimsy box. So we can open it up. This box, by the way, is actually the box that you got Asian Game Boys in. The US one and the UK one was very different, but this is what was made for the Asian markets and stuff like that. So inside it is another sort of cardboard piece just protecting the Game Boy. Which is nice, I suppose. Then we've got a plastic bag. Now, this bag is absolutely destroyed, so there's a good chance that this is actually an official Nintendo Game Boy Advance bag that they've just reused, because there's no way that's a new bag. And then finally, I went with an orange one because I thought it'd be nice for the thumbnail, and also I don't have an orange one. So the first impression, we've got a little protective piece of film here on the screen, which is actually quite nice. Let's peel that off and see the condition of the screen lens, because sometimes these are scratched. And no, this one is fairly good. That's absolutely fine. Actually, there's nothing on there at all. I don't think. No, that looks good. So first impressions, it doesn't feel that bad. You can tell the plastic's quite cheap, but it has to be said the finish of it is absolutely authentic and accurate to the original. So when you're holding it, if you hadn't held an original Game Boy in a while, someone would give you this, and then they're not going to raise any eyebrows. I can absolutely tell you that for certain. The shoulder buttons feel pretty good. Sometimes with these aftermarket cases, the shoulder buttons don't press down very well, but yeah, these feel fine. There's no sort of like burrs sticking out on the plastic. Again, sometimes you get these weird little sort of mold burr type things. I don't know what they're called, stringy bits and whatnot, and there's none of those anywhere that I can see. Inside the battery compartment, it does look like they've replaced the battery contact in the shell, but not on the motherboard. So let's just hope that they don't put any in which have corrosion. There's a weird sort of black stain on the bottom of the shell. I'm not sure what that's there for, but that's not going anywhere. Now, the one thing that I noticed immediately when I took this out of the bag is, can you tell the difference in colour between the replaced buttons and then the original start and select down there? The start and select is rubber, whereas the D-pad and action buttons are plastic, and that rubber is prone to going yellow. So did they not include the start and select rubber in the replacement shell pack? Which actually really worries me, because that's a part of the same process of molding for the membranes of the action buttons and the D-pad. So if they haven't replaced that, that will be quite embarrassing. And the actual rubber membrane, which has the contact on it to make the button press, does wear out over time. So if they haven't replaced that, these button presses might not be very Very good. Right, before we take it apart, let's just plug this game in and see if it turns on and starts first time. Yes, it does. My batteries seem to be a bit out of power. Not got the backlit screen mod, so it is going to be quite dim unless you get really nice lighting and stuff like that. But yeah, all of these buttons are working absolutely fine. So getting into some gameplay, I would say that they have definitely replaced the membranes on here. The buttons feel very nice and springy. The contacts are, well, it's making a very good contact because all of the buttons are very responsive and everything. So I would say that they probably have replaced the membranes and cleaned the contacts, but we'll find out in just a second. But yeah, this is a very nice Game Boy. It's working very well. If you did get this as a gift, you'd be able to get started right away and you probably wouldn't have to worry about taking it apart. I don't know what the continuity is going to be like across all of the ones that they make. So if you do actually go and buy one of these and they don't work very well, there is always going to be that chance. Buying it from Aliexpress is going to mean you're not going to get a lot of customer service support, if any. But anyway, let's take it apart and see what the inside is like. So taking a look at the screws is where my concerns begin. Up in the corner here, there is one rogue Phillips screw. All of the tri-ring screws are rounded, besides one up here, which is actually corroded, sort of oxidized. So they haven't replaced the screws apart from one. And the one that they've replaced is really chewed up, which means that it's probably quite a low quality shell replacement. But anyway, one thing I didn't mention as well is the volume wheel. I turned that up and there was no crackling or anything, so maybe they've cleaned that with a little bit of isopropyl. Right, we shall swap over to the Phillips screwdriver bit to undo these Phillips screws. This one is actually meant to be a Phillips screw in here, but it's meant to be black from memory, and this one is silver. So that's definitely an aftermarket screw there. And then finally, we've got this random chewed up Phillips screw up in the corner. Let's go ahead and remove that. And we shall now be able to lift off the back, and this is where it gets interesting. Here we go. Oh, we're snagging on something. Oh, okay. Right. So the back has the aftermarket cartridge shield on here and two aftermarket screws in there. And then here is the motherboard itself. So, first impressions. They have used a motherboard that seems to be a little bit dirty, and it's not been cleaned in any way, shape or form. There's some oxidation on the power switch there, the power slider, and there's also quite a bit of oxidation on the solder on the power switch. So if there was a slightly unreliable power switch out there, doesn't look like they're going to tackle that unless, you know, but they're not doing it by course of action generally. But if they got a Game Boy that's not working very well, they might put some attention to it. But yeah, this one definitely has not had any resolder or anything like that. It's just been chucked straight in. So there's two aftermarket screws holding the motherboard down. Let's go ahead and unscrew those, and we shall lift off the ribbon cable. Here we go. And unplug this. Okay, so very interesting. What the hell? Oh my god. They've used, no way, they've used one new button membrane here. What is going on? They've used one new button membrane. You can see there, that is a new one. One of the ways you can tell is it sort of has this pattern. Hopefully you can see the pattern there on that black contact. This one has obviously not been replaced because it's all yellow. And finally, this one's not been replaced at all. And it's actually still slightly shiny. So, oh, and it's dirty. Oh no. So they haven't replaced this and they haven't cleaned it. Can you see there? It's all dirty. And then on the back, it does look like they might have rubbed it against some paper just to buff up the contact. But you can see in some angles of the light there, it's still a little bit shiny. So that is not a good sign. That is absolutely rank to think that that is still a dirty, used, old membrane that they've put inside there. Okay, I'm going to set these back down. The buttons, obviously, the action buttons and the D-pad and the L and R triggers are new. The screen's absolutely fine, and I could see from the front that there was no dust or anything under there, so they've just set that down. But here is where things do get very interesting. And by interesting, I mean terrible. Absolutely terrible. And I'm so excited about this because I was worried that I was going to open this up and it was going to be fine and this video would be boring. But look at this. Okay, number one analysis. The speaker has little tiny metal fragments on it. You might be able to see them there. They've all sort of compiled around the speaker because it's magnetic. So if I actually scrape a few of these, you can see that they then stick to the magnetic screwdriver tip there. Can you see? That's absolutely revolting. Oh my god. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to zoom in this camera because you have to see this. What they have done, instead of cleaning the contact, they've scratched it to expose some more metal underneath because the old metal would have been slightly oxidized. So that actually makes me think there's probably no isopropyl alcohol being used on any of this. It hasn't been cleaned because the motherboard is really dirty. Down in this corner down here, you can see loads of little black specks and stuff like that, which means the volume wheel, it's probably just lucky and that my one works and it's nice. The power switch is probably also lucky that that started first time. I mean, that is a little bit presumptuous because they may have isopropyl alcohol, but why would they do that to the button contacts? Look at it. They've scratched the living hell out of them in order to expose some new metal underneath. I mean, that is just horrendous. You can see the silk screen as well there is all scratched up. I'm really hoping you can see that. They've scratched the hell out of it with like a key or something. A knife, because those scratch marks are really, really fine. Ugh. You would think maybe they might have used like a fiberglass pen to rub across that, but from the way that those stroke lines look, I do not think that's a fiberglass pen that they've used there. And also, no one does that unless you have like serious rust. If it's just oxidation, you just use some isopropyl alcohol. Look at the state over here as well. That is just horrendous. Oh no, I mean, that is just some shoddy work right there. And my worry is that they could actually, by doing that, especially because they've gone all over the silkscreen, they could expose a trace underneath the silkscreen. And then that could oxidize a lot quicker, break the trace, and then end up losing a button or something like that. You know, that's just so poor. And then you can see there as well on that speaker all of the congealed metal fragments that have probably come from a dirty factory or something like that. Oh my goodness gracious me. What an absolute treat. I'm so glad that we have uncovered something a bit interesting because this could have been a boring video. Well, there we go. Do I think you should go out and spend 38 British pounds on a refurbished Game Boy that comes in a nice looking shell and a nice looking box? Absolutely not. I would strongly advise you just look on eBay. The ones that you might find on eBay might not be very used, so that means that you can just play an official OEM Game Boy that's not had any tampering with it, or buy yourself a little screwdriver, take it apart, get a bottle of isopropyl alcohol and some Q-tips and give the whole thing a clean. Chances are you probably don't need to replace the shell either, but if you do want to replace the shell replacements are only £5 or £6 from Aliexpress or £10 from eBay. So there we go. I'll leave you guys to make your own conclusions depending on your own expertise level, but that is the Aliexpress Game Boy. Should I buy a couple more? And should we see if there's some like Game Boy Pockets and DMGs and SPs and see what they've done to the inside of those? Let me know in the comment section down below. I really hope you've all enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. And I'll catch you all in the next video. Goodbye.